Each June, we recognize Pride Month, paying tribute to the contributions and fight for equality of the LGBTQ community. Pride Month provides a forum for discussing advocacy, showing the diversity of the community, and learning more about gains and setbacks made in achieving equal rights for all. And speaking of advocacy, I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest, Troy Stevenson. Troy is the Senior Campaign Manager for Advocacy and Government Affairs for the Trevor Project. As the world's largest suicide prevention and crisis intervention organization for LGBTQ young people, the Trevor Project is dedicated to creating a safe, welcoming world for all kids. Troy and the rest of the Trevor Project team fulfill that mission through research, education, advocacy, peer support, and crisis intervention services, providing vital information and resources to LGBTQ young people 24/7, 365 days a year. The 7-Eleven family of brands shares the Trevor Project's vision of a world where all young people see a bright future for themselves. In the spirit of fostering greater understanding and a sense of belonging, we'll be discussing critical issues facing LGBTQ young people and the important work underway to create a more inclusive society. We are truly honored to bring this discussion to you today and could not be more excited to be speaking with and supporting the Trevor Project as part of our Pride Month celebration. Thank you so much for joining us, and please enjoy the discussion.
Troy, thank you so much for joining us. Share with me the mission of the Trevor Project.
The Trevor Project is the world's largest youth mental health and suicide prevention organization for LGBTQ young people. We have 24/7 live phone, text, and chat services for crisis services for youth who are facing mental health crisis or suicidality.
And Troy, how did you personally get involved?
I came to the Trevor Project because I've really focused my entire career on its mission and making sure that LGBTQ youth have got the rights and the dignity that they need. When I was a young person myself in high school back in the 90s and longer ago than I'd like to admit, my first boyfriend, I just started to come out to myself and come out to others. We were behind school one day. And as most 15-year-olds do, we were holding hands and talking, nothing overly dramatic, but we got chased away from the school. And I spoke to him that night, and he said he couldn't go back. He couldn't go back. And I couldn't understand what he meant because, I didn't think anybody'd seen our faces, but he was terrified. And when I probed, I said, well, what's going on? Why do you feel this way? He said that his parents had sent him to a camp where he went through a lot of things that happened to him that I won't go through here. But basically, he was just mortified to have to even think about going back to this place. And after we got off the phone, I thought, I'll see him tomorrow. It'll be okay. Well, he completed suicide that night. And that was one of the most formative things that happened in my life. And it shaped what I do now, to make sure to do my part, to hopefully make sure that young people don't ever have to feel that way again.
Tell me more about the resources that the Trevor Project provides to these youth.
We've got crisis counselors on service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can talk to young people on the phone, which has been the traditional method over the last 20 years in the Trevor Project's existence. But we also now, knowing how young people like to communicate, we've also got 24-hour chat lines where they can chat, or text lines where they can text. It also provides more privacy for the young person who might not be safe to talk about the issues that are facing them in their home or in their school or wherever they're at. And it assures them that they have that person there. We know that through research that the Trevor Project's done, that just one affirming adult in a young person's life, a young queer person's life, will reduce their rate of suicidality by as much as 40%. So that's just one individual. And so that's what we try to do. We try to make sure that there's somebody there. It's not as personal as somebody that's in their life, but it is still a person that they can talk to.
Troy, that statistic is motivating to anyone. Just having that one ally can really bring so much light to someone who may be suffering and who needs someone with compassion and understanding. And I love that you have the chat. You're reaching people where they're at so that they have many different platforms and ways to get the help and get the information that they need. I want to talk to you about Pride Month, Troy. How important is a month surrounded by education and celebration? How important is it to your mission at the Trevor Project?
Pride's really important for so many people. I mean, the Pride began not just as a party or a celebration, but as a protest and a symbol of a community rising up to take back its rights. And I think that's what we remember every time, is remembering that, especially around Pride season, that we fight every day to make sure the next generation doesn't face the discrimination, doesn't face the struggles and the tribulations that ours did, or those that came before us did, and those that became before us did. But I like to say also that every month should be Pride Month, just like every month should be Black History Month, and every month should be Women's History Month. I mean, we should keep these issues, keep the issues that affect people so fundamentally at the forefront of our minds at all times. But like it's so important to also have that time to really focus on what's come before and how we can change it in the future.
Troy, let's stay with that sentiment of awareness, of education, of inclusivity. How can we all better understand? You know, education's our best defense here for understanding what these challenges are and the mission of the Trevor Project. So how can we be an ally? How can we help?
It's the most important thing, is to be that affirming adult in a young person's life. When that young person comes to you and trusts you and tells you who they are, A, believe them, B, be there for them, and C, just be proud of them. That's what Pride Month is about, for being who they are, being honest and open about their true selves. And as for everybody else, it's what we've seen over the last decade or two. When the more people come out, the more the stigma is erased. The more people know that their neighbors and their kids and their siblings and their teachers and their coworkers are members of the LGBTQ community, we see less and less stigma, less and less discrimination, and less young people faced with this alienation and rejection, societal or family rejection. The more that we can decrease that, and that comes with people standing up and talking about acceptance, not just acceptance, but fully embracing who these young people are and allowing them to live their best lives.
So less stigma, less isolation. That's a big mission of the Trevor Project. Another point that you have made is entering into a thoughtful conversation, letting someone feel seen and feel heard. Do you have any tips about someone who might shy away from those conversations, may shy away from being an ally, and really how to approach the subject with someone who needs to be seen and heard?
Sure. Don't shy away. I mean, it's really that simple. It's imagine putting yourself in the place of that young person who has nobody to turn to. Imagine being isolated. Most of us have all faced some sort of social isolation in our lives. The new kid at school, the new person at work, the person that doesn't quite know what to do next. Now imagine that tenfold. Imagine having to hide who you are and being that new person. Imagine carrying that weight around with you. And imagine being the person that could walk over and alleviate some of that pain, take that 100-pound weight off that young person's back and let them know that it's okay to be them. That's what it means to be an ally. And sometimes that means having hard conversations. Sometimes that means having those conversations not just when that gay or lesbian or transgender kid is in the room. Sometimes that means having that conversation when you hear somebody being called names behind their back, or when you hear epithets being thrown around when people think it's safe for them to do it because there's not one of us around to hear it. It's making sure that you stand up not just when it's easy and not just when that person's going to hear it, but standing up at all times and making people know that kind of bigotry, that kind of discrimination, and that kind of shame being put upon a child especially is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form.
You use the word discrimination a lot, Troy. Expand upon that. What are the biggest discriminations that we're seeing?
I mean, in over 25 states, it's still legal to literally not allow somebody into a public accommodation simply because of who they are. And people are turned away from many services, many issues. We've seen fights over adoption and whether gay people should be able to adopt or trans folks should be able to adopt. We've seen across the country a litany of pieces of legislation aimed at stopping young people from playing sports without any real explanation of why. We've seen these things that are aimed at stripping the dignity from children. And I mean, I can't think of a worse kind of discrimination.
Troy, can you share a little bit about some of the challenges you've faced, especially over the past few years with the Trevor Project?
Like everybody else in the world, we've had to deal with the issues of COVID and what has been a time when everybody's at home. And imagining sometimes, we would feel that young people would be better off not being bullied at school because that's the perception, but sometimes home is the place where they have issues. So I know that there are worries about young people being in situations that might not be safe for them, worries about especially with what we're seeing in the young people's lives being made political, and young trans youth having their names be denied, having people use the wrong pronouns intentionally just to hurt them. We know the importance of affirming a young person's identity, and we know that it reduces suicidality, it reduces crisis, it reduces levels of mental health issues just to affirm they are who they are and just to use the name that they want to use. And it's simple things like that we're watching people get more and more cruel over. And it comes down to what we're watching in the media. It comes down to being people trapped in their homes for 2 years at a time, and that possibly not being a safe space. So the world's changed in many ways. We've seen it become much more divisive. We've seen people be trapped in their homes in situations that aren't sometimes not just not perfect, they're not good, or not even safe. So I think we've had to face different levels of crisis among young people, that it's important to recognize that everything that happens in the outside world affects these young people on a daily basis. And our crisis counselors hear about it daily.
In your connection to the Trevor Project and your passion for the work that you do every day is so deeply personal. What keeps you up at night the most when you're thinking about completing the good work you do and carrying out this mission?
As I've gotten older, I have nieces and nephews that I watch grow up every day. And the fear that one of them could face the kind of hatred that was directed at me when I was young. Most of them are too young to even have thought about coming out in any way, but they could. It is a possibility that one of them could be in this situation and making a world where they are safe. They don't have to concern themselves with coming out because it's not an issue, is the kind of world I would like to see for them one day. And that's what allows me to sleep at night, is doing the work that we're doing and hoping that the next generation or the generation after that will not have to worry about the things that we've always had to worry about, will not have to hide who they are, be ashamed of who they are, or be made to feel less than just because of who they are.
Troy, what does success look like for the Trevor Project? Take me maybe 5 or 10 years into the future. What would you like that picture to look like?
We do massive amounts of research every year, and the more often we see the numbers of young people who are attempting or completing suicide, as we see those go down, as we see stigma go down, as we see less vitriolic attempts to harm young people in state legislatures around the country, and less horrible portrayals of young people in the media. I think that's what we want to see. But our main mission is to end suicidality amongst LGBTQ youth. Now, that is very aspirational in many ways. I mean, ending suicide is something we would all like to do, but reducing it, year after year, and making sure that people know, young people know that they have somebody to reach out to. I think that's our mission in totality, is making sure that there is somebody there when that young person is in crisis.
Troy, any last points that you'd like to touch upon of those who are watching, how they can support your mission, or how they contact you if themselves need the resources of the Trevor Project?
I think making sure that anybody that is in a position to speak to a young person and see them in any form of crisis like that, making sure that they have either the Trevor Project's phone number or the National Suicide Prevention Hotline or some number that a young person can call is so important. And I think it's really as simple as just making sure that these young people have the resources.
It sounds like so many reach you when they're already in crisis mode. What we can do as civilians and as allies is make sure that they don't reach crisis mode. Is that right?
I certainly hope so, yes. Making sure that they do have that, like I said, that one affirming adult in a young person's life could reduce their likelihood of suicidality by 40%.
Well, Troy, thank you so much for speaking with us today, shedding light on the good work and the mission of the Trevor Project. The organization is lucky that you are lending your time, heart, and voice to help so many. It was a really informative discussion. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, listening, and perhaps learning alongside me. And if you want any more information about anything that Troy said, log on to their website, thetrevorproject.org. Thank you so much for recognizing and celebrating Pride Month with us.